Hi,
Hey everyone.
this is Toolhouse the podcast. Look at this beautiful light I have, this natural light.
Amazing. I have my secondary monitor on a white page, blasting white light in my face so you can see me today.
Yes. We also have a height difference. Wait, all right.
Yeah, I can.
I'll stay like this.
It's fine. I think that's as long as people can hear us clearly. I think that's all that matters really. Um,
Absolutely. What do we want to talk about today?
Today, the title of the podcast is Developer Marketing Standing on the Shoulders of Giants. What does it
Okay.
mean to do developer marketing by doing things like co-marketing, partnerships, etc., etc. I think it's been extremely successful in a lot of companies, maybe smaller ones that took off, bigger ones, and so it's a symbiotic relationship between the big company that might have a lot of budget but not a lot of marketing eyes, and the smaller companies that might have some really interesting technologies and might have some kind of audience that's really interested and they want to expand that. So how do you bring Goliath and David and Goliath together to basically create a symbiotic relationship that allows both companies to thrive? And we've seen it at Toolhouse. We've done some partnerships with Grok. We've done things with Exa, MongoDB, Cloudflare, of course, and
Llama
more.
Index
Right?
this week. Well,
Sorry.
Llama Index this week as well.
And Llama Index this week, of course. And as we expand our pool of partnerships, like what have we learned and what has worked and what we could have done better, perhaps, or maybe there are some gotchas there that we could have improved on. So
Right.
let's start
So,
talking about developer partnerships. Developer partnerships can come in many forms, right? Like it can be technical, it can be like, so a technical partnership is like we create something that improves a system, right? It can help developers from all over the world benefit from something that our company does that another company might not do, or they might do it, but it would allow them to do it better, right? Or
yes.
maybe not even, let's not use the word better, but let's just say it improves, the the reach of another platform, right? That's one type of partnership, right? So it's kind of technical.
What do you mean
Another
by
type,
the reach of another platform?
sorry.
What do you mean like broadening the reach of another platform?
Yeah, let's think about this with a metaphor. Imagine I'm a car company and I just developed self-driving, okay? And there's like many companies doing self-driving, and then there's a smaller startup that creates this one service that's like, let's call it you know the car comes and finds you. So like it geolocates the owner of the car and drives the car to the owner. All the other companies have self-driving, meaning the car with the owner inside the car can go on the highway, drive around town. It's great, but no company, no big company that makes cars has the summon feature. Okay, and so these small companies, this small startup has the summon feature, and basically, like some plugin system or some kind of technical partnership
Right.
there or integration, they're able to give the summon feature to one car company. And now suddenly this one car company has the summon feature, nobody else has the summon feature. Okay, so this is just an example of like some kind of technical partnership where the bigger company is symbiotically benefiting from having this extra feature because they know that now they can sell it as a premium feature or maybe even like a standard feature. And regardless of how they monetize it with the smaller company, because they can subsidize it, right? I can say, well, we're going to pay you, smaller company, and we will not charge our, the customers when they buy the car, but they will benefit from the service and we'll subsidize it, right? So the pricing is different, but like the genius move is that the smaller companies has identified and pitched successfully something to one of the bigger companies, and so they have they benefit from this partnership, right? Does,
I mean, there's clear value there for both, but it also reminds me of something we've done extensively at Twitter. So Twitter was notoriously slow to move, and that's like common not just to a company like that, but to basically all big companies with large engineering teams or a lot of red tape around products development. How do you speed up process in terms of like product development when you have a lot? Like, and I'll tell you exactly what's going on inside a large company. There's multiple alignment teams. So every time there's a project, the project is not, it's no longer called a project, it's an initiative, or it's a work stream. It's like a completely large stream of work that entails multiple moving parts, a small percentage of which is actual product development. There are some legal implications, there are some policy implications sometimes, and at where that was the case. And with every single policy or data implication came the risk. And so, how do we make sure that when something we hear from user research that's like sorely felt need, we can deliver? And we did that by partnering with other companies who could get maybe 80% of the way there. For example, let's say there were companies. Let's say we heard that developers struggled to store bookmarks, you know, and we wanted to provide a solution ourselves. But we knew that there were companies out there who were already doing this with their own apps, and so we got closer to them and told them, "Would you like to be part of this ecosystem? We'll get a partnership together where we get you as close as possible to us, but you still use the API product. So we're separated, everything is kosher. We don't have to build anything new, which means we don't have to go through this like 3 months or excruciatingly painful process in getting legal clearance and all this kind of stuff, while we give you basically all the user referral. So you get more traffic, you get more exposure. You can tout that you're working with a large company. You get all these benefits. We get more like details in terms of how this app is responding to your needs. And if everything works, we basically got our like lead time in building something that we can then pass down to you, and you can further commoditize into your app, and everybody wins. And if anything, actually, if we end up not delivering this, there might be another alternative that's faster. And that's the second part of the product development. Like there's this saying that says basically the three routes to build a product: partner with somebody else who already does something like that, the product you want to build, acquire them, or build it yourself. And building it yourself is basically the most cumbersome, the more like expensive way to do stuff. And so you may want to actually start with partnerships because the cost of building yourself is too high, and the confidence may be too low, or maybe just too risky to do that. And so you do first the partnership, you see how this partner operates, and then you bring this partner, if it's really delivering, listen to your feedback, ingesting user research you may pass down to them. You can bring it closer and closer to your company until, well, you eat that and you acquire that, and it becomes your product. And that's been done extensively at Twitter, somewhat successfully, I want to say. Like Spaces, for example, I mean, case in point, how the hoodie today was a result of an acquisition. It became one of the fastest growing products in the entire history of Twitter.
Great. And so that, definitely being acquired by a larger company is a great outcome. But some companies, they don't want to be acquired, right? They just want to grow systematically by themselves for whatever reason. They might have investor pressure. They might think they're going to be huge, et cetera, et cetera. And so there are other types of partnerships that you can do, right? So let's think about, for example, ecosystem partnerships, which in my head is defined as you go out there in the ecosystem of companies that work in a similar field as you, and you create not so much an integration, but maybe like you're a service provider, or maybe if they have like a marketplace. A lot of companies do that, right? They have like marketplaces. Like I think Airtable has a marketplace. I think Zapier has a marketplace, of course, et cetera, et cetera. On the developer side, you have like Heroku, you can have Datadog, right? All these companies have this kind of like partner marketplace, which means that once you're, and Stripe has one too, by the way. Actually, I worked on this specifically when I was collaborating with Stripe, building one of the first apps for Salesforce that would be then sold through the Stripe marketplace to all developers, right? And so Shopify, by the way, has that too, right? So you're a developer, you're building your solution, and then you end up on the marketplace, and I feel like this is really good because there is again, this symbiotic relationship where you can become featured on the marketplace. If you do a great job, you provide new features, right, that a customer can or cannot install into the wider platform. So let's think about Heroku, right? Like with Heroku, we're very familiar with it. They have a developer marketplace that some partners that are allowed to like list they call it, I think, extension. They can do that, and they can basically grow with the customer that Heroku already onboarded. So an example would be like a cache, right? Like a Redis cache. We're kind of familiar with that. So if you're Redis, imagine like, or a competitor to Redis, you end up on the marketplace, and then you go through like all the, jump through the hoops, make sure you're verified. Heroku has to do a lot of like back and forth with the developer of this extension. But then ultimately, when you're on the marketplace, you can monetize. You can get customers that are already on Heroku, and you give them a superpower. In a way, it's a little bit like the marketplace that we're building at Toolhouse, right? It's like you're a developer, you built a function call, and now you can monetize it if you desire through Toolhouse, or at least that's the big idea, right? And I think this kind of partnership is really powerful because it's a very quick way to grow exponentially if you have a product that people value. So I know personally a lot of companies, actually one of them is called Abyssal. It's a French, like abyssal, whatever the English translation would be. They do like, technical marketing, et cetera, has to do with banner advertising. And once they listed their app on the make.com and Zapier marketplace, it suddenly allowed all of the technical marketing people to use their service without anyone knowing who they are. They just go on the marketplace. As a technical marketer, you go on the Zapier marketplace and you search. You're like, I need to make something that looks like that. The keyword on the marketplace matches your service, and suddenly you have a new customer. And depending on how that marketplace integration is done, you can do like automatic provisioning, meaning that you don't even have to sign up on the partner website, right? Like, so in Toolhouse, for example, if you want to create a function calling and you want to have a billing system, you can either bring your own key, kind of like we built a Perplexity tool, which allows anybody that has a Perplexity API key to basically use, the Perplexity endpoints through, as a function call, which is very different, of course, from an API call, right? But that requires the user, and sometimes at hackathons, I've learned this, it can be a pain because now the user wants to use Perplexity, but they have to go on the Perplexity website, provision their account, get an API key, and then go back to Toolhouse and put that API key inside of Toolhouse, and then they can now use the Perplexity tool. So there are hooks here that can be removed with authentication and deeper provisioning systems, which means that ideally the experience would be the user gets on Toolhouse, finds a function, press a button. They already have the credit card on file because we already have their credit card on file, and that's as smooth as as the Mediterranean Sea, I would say, because it's very smooth compared to like an ocean, right? And so that is the ultimate experience of ecosystem partnership, meaning you go and you find other communities and you build this like, simple ways to like expand your product through like interacting on like marketplaces, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think you basically benefit from like larger companies, like they already have maybe a marketplace, like I said, Datadog, Heroku, Zapier, Make, there's hundreds, Shopify, and you basically list your say apps or function code, whatever you're selling, and you can benefit from the exposure and the fact that these companies already have thousands of eyeballs, right? Like browsing the marketplace every day.
Right. You're basically initially like a demand aggregator. I mean, it's marketplace. So your role is to obviously aggregate as much demand as possible. And we're seeing this here as well. Like we are young, but like growing very fast. And I don't think we should shy away from touting our success. And that is something that publishers realize. Like we have a pipeline of publishers that we are kind of keeping under a red leather rope because we can't keep up with demand. And so what we need to do first is to obviously make sure that we have the tools developers need and the right demand. So the ultimate marketplace partnership is only true as you make sure the developer experience is not just nice, but it's awesome. It's like superior to anything and everybody else. And we're seeing this today with our developers. Like we see sometimes developers struggling to understand how this can be so magic. Like why is all of a sudden framework X asking me to write 10,000 lines of code and you do it with 3? Like I don't understand. I can't wrap my head around it. Where's the catch? And so that is the kind of opportunity that we are riding, because we know that there's a ton of like boilerplate that doesn't need to exist. And with our very simple, straightforward implementation, we make it very easy to go and build just fantastic apps. So from that point, that's basically our unlocks today, and that creates a lot of demand and a lot of like repeat usage. As we grow that, then that's how we start onboarding more and more partners based on what we need. And yeah, partners like EXA, for example, they've done that successfully because there's a one key integration that already gives them revenue every time somebody calls the API key, and then we get revenue from the other side, and so everybody's happy. And like you mentioned, hackathons where speed is key, but what is the equivalent in large companies and enterprises? Like speed is not something that just hackathons or hackers or students that want to get started with a weekend project need. An agency that is losing today clients because they can't hire or deliver fast enough projects that are AI based, they're struggling with that. They need to deliver quickly, and then they want to keep their margins as much as possible, of even increasing those margins. And with Toolhouse, they can do that exactly with the same exact mechanism, which is what we're seeing today. Like medium and large companies, they cannot afford to get an AI engineer for like $350,000 a year, unless they want to go on the shitty routes and get someone who claims to be a prompt engineer or an AI engineer, and then nothing happens as a result. So we commoditize that for them. Again, same mechanism. You had building blocks, you had an infrastructure, you have secure authentication, you provision the tools you need, and you just deliver the project. So you still focus on your core capabilities of going fast, delivering on your first-party data, bringing the first-party data into Toolhouse, and then the rest is taken care of by Toolhouse itself. And enterprises is exactly the same. There are certain things that are not critical or are not strategic to their business, and there are things that actually the company could be liable for. And we're seeing this at large companies. Like I'll name two. X was one. Facebook is another one. They are like, Facebook used to suffer from what's called a not invented here syndrome. Have you ever heard of that? So not invented here syndrome is that you never ever use things that are built outside of your company. Even if there's a perfectly good library, software, whatever that exists out there, you can't trust it. You need to build it yourself. And at Meta, it used to be the case for pretty much everything except Salesforce. Like we even have our own email service.
Got it.
And so as Cambridge Analytica happened, one big shift needed to happen. Like the more data Facebook has and has to deal with, the more the liability relies on one single point of failure. I mean, Meta itself, right?
Right.
So you want to remove some of those complexities of concern and hand it off to other people. And I'll give you a very stupid example. There's a company called DevPost, which all of us know because
Yeah.
they power pretty much like 90% of all the hackathons out there.
Yeah.
That software is sold to small, medium, and large enterprises like Meta, Google, Microsoft, Apple. They all use the DevPost. Why? Because in their contract, which is like about like 60,000 plus per event, they get the legal responsibility of handing over the prices, getting sued, making sure that everything becomes kosher in the distribution of prices or the handling or the judging, all this kind of stuff. And obviously, all these big companies say, I don't give one single kitty poop about this kind of stuff. Like, I'd rather you get sued for that cost than us dealing with this. It's not strategic for us. So absolutely, take my money. This is like obviously one single like nugget, one single example of why liability is shifting. But in enterprise software, specifically dealing with privacy, authentication, data protection, it's super crucial that others take the blame for that, especially when things are not crucial, like a simple API integration to like augment data that's coming from third parties. And that's basically a huge opportunity for people and something that is poorly understood, which is actually great for us because the more people don't understand that, the more we can capitalize on the opportunity.
Awesome. And I guess, closing remarks, I think it's really important to think about whenever you do a partnership, it's like a game of chess, right? Like you have to spend time to set up the partnership, negotiate the partnership, and then on the other side, you need to understand what the rewards of the partnership are. So, for example, are you going to spend 100 hours of engineering time to be featured on the marketplace? And is it worth your time? Are you going to spend 10 hours of engineering time to then be featured on the marketplace that might have less traffic? So you need to calculate what are, for example, this was an example of marketplace partnership, right? Any kind of integration takes time. Like there's some that are more simple and some are more long-winded, but there's still engineering time that needs to be used up. And so if you're a small team, you need to evaluate really carefully, like what are the partnerships that make sense to you? What are you getting in return? How much effort does it require? And can you then, if you learn from this one partnership, how many other partnerships of the same kind can you do, right? Because sometimes you will be potentially exclusively partnered with, maybe in the example of Zapier, right? You could be not allowed to link to like post your extension on another platform like make.com, right? They're very big competitors. And so, in the world of CRMs, if I'm a Salesforce app, am I allowed to be a HubSpot app? And if I'm not allowed, what do I get from Salesforce from being exclusive to Salesforce? So you need to consider that when you negotiate partnerships, especially when they require more work than just, I would say 10 hours, right? So especially in startups, right? Like every minute counts, everything you do is like, it's like, money and time, from whatever you raised, or if you haven't raised any money, it's like time that you could be spending somewhere else, most likely talking to other customers, most likely talking to other potential partners. And so it's important to evaluate every partnership, not only for what they give you, but like the effort and if there's any kind of lock-in or repeatability, et cetera, et cetera. So I think those are very important key considerations. But that's all I have. That's a great. I have loved to hear the stories from Daniele, your past experiences, and I hope that what we discussed today helps other companies that might be just starting to do partnership to kind of evaluate them with a better light, I guess, especially if you've never done it. This is good. This is hopefully useful and instructional for some people. So
absolutely. I think all you said, we should get the transcript. It could become like a nice reading, like a blog post that it's all like start to finish, and it's really the playbook that we saw even like at larger companies. So Partnerships are hard, and all the moving pieces you described need to be executed in the right way. The last thing I want to say as very like last closing thought is that you still need to be awesome as a company, like as a business partner to the other end of the partnership. Because if you don't bring enough value, then there's nothing that you can do. And the leverage that you have on the other company, for example, if you're negotiating an exclusivity agreement or any other like clause in your partnership agreement, is going to be basically discounted and diminished by the less awesome you are. So you need to really keep the execution bar high still on your own business and still focus on what matters the most, i.e. your customers.
That's it. That's the pod. Happy Friday. I love the light that you have. That's awesome.
I love it.